Welcome back to the Richard Sherman podcast. Mitchell, parody.
Parody is king again, Rich. I want to start, obviously, I feel like as we always have been. Your listener base is Seattle lovers, and they're surprising us week after week. Richard, they win again. How does this keep happening?
Well, I mean, it's not by accident, Mitchell. They're running the ball well. Kenneth Walker III is executing this offense. Both of those rookie tackles, that offensive line in general is playing well. Geno threw a pick six. Everybody thought the sky is falling. This is the Geno moment. This is where it all comes to fruition. It all ends. The dream. All this. It's the old Geno. No, it's not. Geno came to the sideline, calm, cool, and collected. Said, "Nah, we got this. That's on me. Won't happen again." Led 3 75-plus yard drives, all for touchdowns. It was beautiful.
I certainly did not see this coming. I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of the year. We figured, maybe they could sniff 500, but this has got a team that's looking like they could walk away with the division right now. If you throw in some money on this at the beginning of the season, you could become a very wealthy man. But Seattle 6-3 with a 1.5 game lead now in the NFC West. The other team in this division that blew their chance to try to keep up, is the LA Rams. They've become disappointing week after week. Their defense keeps trying to hold them in games, but their offense sure looks like a shell of itself. Richard, your boy Tom Brady got the big dub. How in the world does that happen?
Well, it's touchdown Tom. He's going to get it done, and he thankfully they turned things around. They got Seattle and Munich, Germany next week, so that'll be a great game. That's going to be interesting. I'm going to probably be up at 6 o'clock watching that one. But it's sad for the Rams. Their offensive line is atrocious. They got walked through. Vita Vea had 2 sacks. Those guys were walking through their offensive line. Even without Shaq, it looked like the same kind of pressure on Matt Stafford. He only threw for 165. Most of his targets were to Cooper Kupp, who had, I think, 127. But it's like, that's not enough. If you take away 2 of Cooper Kupp's longest passes, I think he threw 32 passes for 35 yards. And, I mean, that's not getting it done. People praised him for what he did last year. They're like, oh, Matt Stafford just needed a good team. He just needed a good organization, and he'd thrive. Well, he's still on the same team, same organization, and he's not thriving anymore. This defense is getting stops. Those playmakers are making plays, and it's not getting the job done. And they're like, oh, Sean McVay. Sean McVay says there needs to be changes. There needs to be fixes. He's got to start with the offensive side of the ball, obviously. I don't know if it's the play calling. I don't know if it's, what you going to do? You can't cheer up the offensive line. Nobody wanted to trade with the Rams. They wanted to give 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. They wanted to give up another pick. They wanted to give up picks for Christian McCaffrey. Nobody wanted to do business with the Rams this year. I wonder why. I don't, hey, you won a Super Bowl, nobody wants to do business with you. Tough luck. You got to find another way to shore up that offensive line because they are not going anywhere, and they're not going anywhere fast if this offensive line keeps being as bad as they are.
Well, we talked about it at the beginning of the season on previous podcasts. I think the person I feel probably most sorry for over the last couple of years of his career is Allen Robinson, who I know you've got a ton of respect for, but this guy just can't seem to catch a break. I mean, he's with Chicago. He's begging for the ball. He can't get it. Hey, he figures he's going to go to warm weather in L.A. He's got Golden Boy Matthew Stafford slinging him the rock, and not so much. I mean, this offense has the pieces. They just don't have the O-line. And for those fans that are casual sports fans, casual football fans, this is what happens when you have a very, very subpar O-line. Doesn't matter what offensive line, what offensive weapons you may have, your offense is going to be atrocious. And
yeah, but at the same time, we watched one of the worst offensive lines in Super Bowl history, and Joe Burrow gets sacked 12 times a game in the playoffs and still walked them to the Super Bowl. So this is a little bit on Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford has to find ways to get balls to other players, and he's not doing that. Higbee's a good player. They got the back. Cam Akers came back. Allen Robinson, seemed to be productive when they were getting him the ball. But, again, most of his targets go to Cooper Kupp, and Cooper Kupp is really productive. But that's not winning them ball games. He's throwing for 165 yards is what you expect from a young quarterback who's developing. You're not expecting that from a veteran who's been in the league 14 years, who you expect, hey, you just won us a Super Bowl. You just helped get us to a Super Bowl. And right now he's second in the league in interceptions, only has, I think, 8 touchdown passes. That's not getting the job done.
No, it is not. Richard, let's switch it out east. I don't know what is in the water out east, whether you're in the AFC East or the NFC East. Both of these divisions are just walking away
drunk, Mitchell.
with what seems to be the best divisions in football. Every single team in the AFC East is now above 500. And we saw a really good competitive game in New York with the Jets at home against the Buffalo Bills. And I think this is a wake-up call for the league that the Jets are a team that could make some noise come the end of the season. Richard, I know you love Sauce. Talk to me about Sauce.
I don't got to say nothing. Sauce is putting it on tape in the Big Apple. They said he was, is he going to be ready for the big lights in the big city and all this? Is he, he's the second cornerback taken, and he looks like he should have been the first quarterback taken. People were saying, oh, he might be a reach at 4. He's not looking like a reach at 4. He's looking like he's changed the entire dynamic of this team, of the city, of this defense, along with Quan Alexander, along with G.J. Reed. Jordan Whitehead made a heck of a play last week. C.J. Mosley was all over the field. You got to give LaMarcus Joyner, that secondary. I mean, they're making a case to be one of the best secondaries in the league just from a playmaker's perspective. Every week you see a different guy getting an interception or multiple guys getting interceptions. They're turning the ball over at a high rate. Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, is doing a great job. Quentin Williams said at rush 4, they're rushing 4. And Quentin Williams is getting home and looking like an all-pro candidate this year. Zach Wilson is doing just enough for the city. They're running the ball well, and it's getting the job done, man. That's all you can ask. And people keep saying, oh, he was playing backup quarterbacks. Then when he plays MVP candidate at quarterback against a very elite defense, like they're a well-rounded team, they beat him, and they control Josh Allen. He doesn't throw a touchdown pass, throws 2 interceptions. Like, this was not a fluky win. This was a statement win, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, Richard, and a not so crazy hot take, I think a lot of GMs would probably pencil in Sauce Gardner as a number 1 overall pick if they could redo this past draft. Richard, I think the most concerning thing and concerning takeaway, and again, we addressed this in the past, but again, this is one of the most insane stats, I think, from the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are 2-7 in one-score games since 2021. I mean, this is a team that has been dominant, that has blown teams away, but in the close games, they just can't seem to figure it out. And you know better than anyone, when it comes to playing tight games in the playoffs, they got to be able to figure out how to win. Is this a big concern for you?
I mean, it should be a big concern for them. We'll see. Playoff football can change at any time. People can get hot in the playoffs, but they better fix that, because if it's because the quarterback's getting tight or the receivers are dropping passes or the coordinator is getting tight about his play calling, then they're never going to make it to where they want to be. Because in the playoffs, it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be tight. You're going to have to execute at the end. You're going to have a 2-minute drill to win the game or to get a field goal. And if you can't execute that, you're going home. And last year they executed it for with all due respect. They executed it. They just didn't get another possession in overtime. So we'll see.
We got probably one of the most outrageous storylines over midway through this point of the season. It is something that we saw coming. Aaron Rodgers struggles again. The Green Bay Packers have now lost 5 in a row. The Packers scored 9 points, Rich, against the worst defense in the NFL. My hometown, Detroit Lions, took it to Aaron Rodgers. It's about time, baby. We all know the answer, but how does this happen? How is this remedied? Is there any hope for the Packers?
When you lose the amount of production and chemistry that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams were beating a dead horse, but you're going to lose a lot of what they had. People were like, oh, it wasn't just Devontae. It wasn't just Aaron. I mean, it was a lot of Devontae and Aaron. They can run a 2-man game all the way to the NFC Championship, and they did it for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And Aaron got 2 MVPs. Like, I think he got 3 since Devontae's been there. And without Devontae Adams and these guys they have there, they are not a threat. There's not anybody on that defense that's threatening. I mean, on that offense that's threatening you. Christian Watson can't seem to stay on the field. There was all these grumblings, complaints about, oh, he's being too hard on him. Cool. Aaron can't be hard on him. You're throwing 3 interceptions. Now the finger gets pointed at you. Finger gets pointed at, hey, Aaron Rodgers, what are you doing? Some of those decisions, what are you doing? Now that's when the locker room starts falling apart. When you got young guys that can question the proven veteran on the team, then things start falling apart because you have no stability. You have nobody to look to where you're like, hey, this guy's going to right the ship. Because if A-Rod ain't righting the ship, ship's not getting righted. And then you start thinking about who's on the hot seat and who they're getting rid of. And right now, he doesn't have a whole lot of help, but he can't make those decisions. He compounded it. Like, they scored 9 points against the Detroit Lions. The defense did their job. They held them down, but you can only do so much. this loss falls on him. And I'm sure he accepts that. I'm sure he accepts that. But he's still, no matter what, this is going to be a long season because the trade deadline has passed. They went after Chase Claypool. They weren't able to get him. They didn't get him any help. So it's not like reinforcements are coming anytime soon.
It's not. And you talked about him accepting it. It's almost like he's accepted the personnel he has around him. And you can see it with his body language, Rich. I mean, he's frustrated out there. I mean, he had every right to be in this game. 2 red zone interceptions. Theoretically, they should have walked away with the win, but the Lions held tight. And it doesn't get any easier for the Packers. They host the Cowboys. This team could be staring at 3-7 next week, Rich, and that's something certainly Aaron Rodgers not used to. But sticking in the NFC North, you talked about them, and all of a sudden the Bears went from unwatchable to probably one of the more fun teams to watch in this league. They're using Justin Fields the right way. The guy pops off for 178 yards rushing, and this team almost knocks off the Miami Dolphins in a thriller. Rich, I mean, could we see a second half comeback with the Bears if there is a team to push from the depths of this league to the playoff contention if they're utilizing their personnel the right way?
I think it's too little too late. I don't think they'll be able to come out but they're going to be fun to watch. It should be optimism there for Bears fans for sure. What's frustrating is it took this long. We talked about it when we had their game. The people were like, you guys were just ragging on Justin Fields. It's like, I wasn't ragging on Justin Fields. I was ragging on Eberflus, and how he's using him. They're like, well, he's a very accurate pocket passer. That's all sound. That's all good and well if you have great receivers and a great offensive line. You do not have either. You have Mooney, who can get open and be dynamic. Pettis can get open and be dynamic at times, but you don't have the consistent number one that you need to allow your quarterback to drop back, hit his back foot, and then consistently work. So what you have to do is use his skill set, put pressure on the defense, put them on a compromised situation. And that's what they're doing. They're keeping the defense on their heels. They're moving him out of the pocket. He's able to get easy reads, pitch and catch. And when he's able to drop back in rhythm, he's not getting blitzed. He's not because they're afraid to. Because if you blitz and he boots, or you blitz and he runs it, and you got less people in the back end to defend him. And he can run right through your defense, as he proved on that 61-yard touchdown. He's a great athlete. But it's frustrating that it took them watching the Baltimore Ravens on the bye week for them to realize, hey, we have a really athletic quarterback who can be really dynamic if we just gave him the ball and got out the way. Literally broke the rushing record for a quarterback. It's been up since Mike Vick. And had 4 touchdowns in the game. Like, what are y'all doing?
It reminds me, honestly, your second year with the 49ers when Lamar Jackson became the hot ticket item in town and the Ravens finally figured out how to use him properly. Their offense was unstoppable. I mean, now the Chicago Bears offense, I don't want to call them unstoppable, but certainly utilizing Justin Fields the right way can make them a tough team to deal with. And it's a shame it took them over point through the season to figure out how to use Justin Fields. But we saw another interesting game. And again, I question you about the Minnesota Vikings being their top 5 of the power ranks. And
Kirko.
They almost lost to the Commanders. I don't know if the Commanders are a decent team or a garbage team. We're waiting to see how that all nets out. But Kirko wins at his own team. I mean, they're now 7-1. You got to give the guys credit. I don't know how much there is to talk about with this game, but the Vikings keep winning. Beautiful or not, they're winning.
Mitchell, it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be great, as long as you win it. And in the championship season, it all looks good at the end. I'm sure we can go back in the Rams season last year and find some very ugly losses and some very ugly wins where you're like, doesn't matter. You're holding a trophy at the end. And Kirko and company are putting themselves in position to be a very high seed in the playoffs and give themselves a chance. You won. You get a bye in the first round. They find a way to get a bye in the first round. You get one win, and you're in the NFC Championship. And that's what you want. That's the position you want to put yourselves in. And it looks like they're having fun. You see these videos of Kirk Cousins with chains on, dancing, like they're vibing. They're enjoying themselves. Kevin O'Connell is doing a great job creating that kind of environment for those guys to thrive in. Justin Jefferson having another phenomenal season. Zadarius Smith is having another great year. That defense is looking phenomenal. They're just a veteran team that knows what they're doing and utilizes their playmakers and puts teams in a tough position week in and week out. And whether it's a tight ball game, a loose ball game, they won by 1, they won by 2, they won by half a point. Does not matter. 7-1.
A win is a win. And Richard, they have a star on this team, Justin Jefferson. This is his 19th career 100-plus yard game, tied for the most through 3 seasons with Odell Beckham and Randy Moss. They picked up T.J. Hawkinson, who had 9 targets, 9 receptions. They got some talent on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense is clicking. Who knows? Who knows with this Vikings? It makes sense why they're in your top 5.
If good Kirko shows up in the playoffs, it's going to be tough on somebody. If good Kirko shows up in the playoffs, Minnesota, very dangerous.
Yeah, they just better hope they're not playing the 49ers, because the 49ers seem to have their number.